Deep within the foreboding walls of the Demon King's castle, the aftermath of a fierce and savage battle painted a clear picture of devastation and loss. Yet, amid the ruin, a steadfast team of heroes continues to press forward with unwavering determination. Their shared strength acts as a shining beacon of hope amid the dark shadows engulfing the fortress. The core members of this brave group, consisting of a knight clad in shining armor, a wise sage, and a compassionate cleric, were expressions marked by grim resolve, each hero steeling themselves against the chaos. Despite their valiant efforts, they are relentlessly assaulted by savage monsters that cut through their ranks with vicious ferocity, steadily turning the tides of fighting against them. Among them, a young warrior roars fiercely, summoned by an indomitable fighting spirit, while his more seasoned companion observes the chaos with anxious eyes filled with concern. Meanwhile, the experienced veterans expertly skill the battlefield, holding back the ravenous swarm of demonic creatures with precise, disciplined defenses. Recognizing the mounting peril, Aikido, the key hero, perceives that his comrades are nearing their limit, and a difficult decision begins to take shape in his mind: a tactical retreat to preserve their lives. Suddenly, one of his allies, sensing the urgency, urges him to advance alone, promising that the rest will hold the line long enough for him to confront the Demon King single-handedly. Understanding their selfless sacrifice, Aikido accepts their plea with a resolute nod, standing firm before the immense, winged figure seated upon the throne within the throne room. The Demon King, sensing the defiance, greets the approaching challenger with a sinister grin and promptly unleashes a devastating blast of pure destructive energy. The powerful attack engulfs the entire throne room, giving the appearance that the hero has been annihilated in an instant. Yet, in a remarkable display of resilience, Aikido pushes his way through the raging energy wave, masking a mixture of regret and resolve in his expression as he prepares his final move. With a single, thunderous strike, he shatters the Demon King's monstrous form into fragments, destroying the very essence of his dark adversary. The force of his final blow wrecks through the castle structure itself, signaling that the battle has reached its dramatic conclusion. The Demon King's grotesque body cracks and warps in disbelief, unable to comprehend the suddenness of its defeat. Ultimately, its form disintegrates completely, overwhelmed by its own abrupt and absolute destruction. As the dust settles and silence returns, Aikido stands alone amidst the ruins, an undisputed victor crowned by his courage and strength. His faithful companions arrive shortly after, exhausted yet alive, their faces a mixture of relief and admiration as they call out his name. Turning around, Aikido's eyes widen with surprise and a sense of relief when he verifies that his entire team has survived the ordeal. When questioned about the outcome of the fight, he responds with a quiet, knowing smile, embodying the triumph of their collective effort. Without boasting, he simply states that they have emerged victorious, believing wholeheartedly that peace has now been restored to the world they fought so desperately to save. A month later, the scene shifts from the ruined battleground to a grand celebration hall filled with lively festivities. A magnificent party is in full swing, honoring the heroes who brought down the Demon King and restored hope to their world. The celebration has been ongoing for what is officially the 5th straight day, a testament to the magnitude of their victory. Among the revelers, Aikido, the celebrated hero, is already sprawled on a plush couch, completely exhausted from the relentless merrymaking. His close companion, Flora, a revered priestess, approaches him with gentle concern, noting his obvious fatigue from the endless festivities. Meanwhile, his comrades fondly recall his legendary feats, such as the remarkable feat of conquering a towering mountain peak in the span of a single night. Two of his female allies playfully corner him, teasing him about how he should simply endure the ceremonious formalities that follow such grand achievements, though it's clear they understand the tedium involved. Soon, the rest of his party joins in, urging him to cease resisting the ceremonial duties and enjoy the affectionate attention. They admit that they themselves find some parts of the formalities dull, but insist that as the hero of their story, he must shoulder this responsibility. One of his friends marvels aloud at the memory of Aikido's solitary victory over the Demon King, his achievements etched into legend. Humbly, Aikido dismisses the praise, yet the towering warrior Garen Aldolf, with his calm and commanding presence, speaks plainly. Thanks are unnecessary, for they only did their duty as commanded by the emperor. Yet, unfazed by the acknowledgement, Aikido offers a warm smile, expressing his sincere gratitude for having been able to meet such extraordinary allies. With heartfelt sincerity, he extends a hand in gratitude, thanking each member of his party for their unwavering support, their diverse expressions softening at his genuine appreciation. His face radiates pure joy and genuine affection as he looks at his companions, an expression that embodies the deep bond they share. Later that night, Aikido, now visibly intoxicated and utterly exhausted, is gently scolded by his friends for his notoriously low tolerance to alcohol. One of his companions struggles to keep him upright, reminding him that an important ceremony awaits them on the following day. The mood among the group shifts upon their serious discussion about future plans after the festivities conclude. A calm yet slightly tipsy Aikido looks bewildered at the sudden and heavy question, unable to focus. Garen Aldolf then states his intention to return home, to help rebuild his empire shattered by war. The others follow suit, each revealing their own aspirations and future paths. As all eyes turn toward Aikido, he, feeling the weight of their gaze, is compelled to confront his own truth. The realization dawns that unlike his companions, he is not from their world, nor does he have a homeland to return to. An entirely different future awaits him. The weight of this lonely burden settles heavily upon him, reflected in his steady, unwavering gaze. Beneath the twin moons shining overhead, the hero silently contemplates an uncertain, uncharted future, filled with both hope and uncertainty. The following morning arrives, bringing a sense of anticipation as everyone prepares for the grand official ceremony. Inside a vast cathedral, Aikido, visibly nervous, peeks cautiously from a waiting chamber at the huge crowd gathered for the event. His companions find and reassure him, reminding him of the importance of this moment, though he cannot help but feel uneasy about his ceremonial attire. His companion explains that this event is a formal peace treaty, and therefore, his elegant and elaborate outfit is obligatory. Nervously, Aikido watches as she carefully fastens an ornate ceremonial gauntlet onto his arm, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and pride. He hesitantly jokes about the gauntlet's expense, only to be told that it is an invaluable national treasure, an heirloom that must be revered. Outside, the massive crowd roars with excitement, loudly chanting for a figure they call the messenger. Peering through a window, Aikido is stunned to realize that he himself is the one they believe to be the divine messenger they eagerly await. As they prepare to move toward the ceremony, a solemn moment passes over him, and he reflects on how this event signifies the end of his journey with his loyal friends. Flora, ever concerned, gently asks about his plans for the future. Aikido, after giving the question serious thought overnight, confidently states that he intends to travel across the world. He explains that, despite restoring peace, many people still face hardships and suffering, and his power could be a source of salvation for others. A gentle, hopeful smile forms as he embraces a newfound purpose, to be a true hero for those in need. Flora, inspired and hopeful, asks if she might accompany him on his travels. Her expression brightens, and she declares that she believes his new aspiration is admirable and full of promise. As the imposing doors to the cathedral swing open, their final destination becomes clear. Inside, Aikido is struck by the sight of countless robed figures filling the hall, the holy men from distant lands called together specifically for this grand occasion. The scene unfolds as she commands Aikido to take his place at the heart of a vast, circular stone platform. Uncomfortably, he steps onto the cold surface, instructed to remain still while he surveys the silent sea of hundreds of watchful eyes. Spectators cloaked in shadow, their expressions unreadable. Suddenly, one of his female companions steps forward, her voice cutting through the tension with a questioning tone as she casts doubt on the grandeur of this ceremony. Without waiting for an answer, she gives the order to commence, and the gathered robed figures begin their solemn chant. As their voices rise in unison, A luminous, enchanted seal activates beneath Aikido's feet, shimmering with arcane energy. Without warning, a flurry of magical chains erupts from the seal's core, snaking outward to ensnare the hero and leaving him utterly stunned by the sudden assault. He struggles helplessly against the enchanted bonds, their magic rendering him completely immobile. It dawns on him swiftly. This is a meticulously planned magical ambush, designed to trap him in a cunning and deadly trap. Desperate, he tries to warn Flora, only to see her standing nearby in haunting silence. Her once warm and benevolent expression has been replaced by a chilling, triumphant smile, her true intentions now painfully evident and her former kindness shattered. Gazing upward with wide, horrified eyes, Aikido is betrayed by the one person he had begun to trust. Flora's condescending voice remarks on his fierce struggle, seemingly impressed that he can still move despite being bound by sacred treasures of immense power. His mind reels, overwhelmed with confusion and disbelief. How can the hero who had once saved the world be subjected to such villainy? Her cold admittance is even more terrifying. It is precisely his overwhelming strength that makes him so dangerous in their eyes, the very reason they now see him as a threat. Her face twists into a sinister mask as she confirms his worst fears, effectively crushing any hope that this nightmare might be just an illusion or a moment of weakness. From his constrained position, Aikido can see her shadow looming over him, a stark reminder of the grim, unalterable reality of his predicament. Even his trusted companion, Garen Aldolf, makes an appearance, his expression devoid of remorse as he coldly announces, "This betrayal is simply Aikido's destiny." His words cut deep, revealing that his betrayal was not accidental but a premeditated necessity. Garen explains with detachment that Aikido's extraordinary power threatens to destabilize the fragile political equilibrium that governs their world. Meanwhile, Nagisa, another of his female allies, grimly states that they cannot permit such disruption. They must eliminate him for the greater good. Garen further reveals that the 5 great nations of their realm have formed a secret alliance explicitly to eradicate the hero. Aikido looks desperately around at the faces of those he once called friends, now silent and unyielding. All of his former comrades have abandoned him on the platform, their allegiance forever changed. He demands to understand why he is being betrayed, only to be told coldly that his overwhelming strength is now regarded as an evil in its own right. Bound tightly and betrayed by those he trusted, Aikido's face contorts with a mixture of rage and utter disbelief. He turns his pleading gaze toward Flora, desperation evident in his voice, asking if she, too, has forsaken him. Flora pauses momentarily, feigning thoughtfulness, then suddenly breaks into a sickeningly sweet smile, confirming her treachery with cheerful, calculated certainty. Infused with pure rage, Aikido responds by unleashing a tremendous surge of power, a shockwave that shatters the magical seal beneath him in an explosive burst of energy. The backlash from this act is so fierce that it causes one of the holy men present to collapse, overwhelmed by the strain. The entire group of mages wavers as Garen Aldolf gapes in shock at the hero's overwhelming strength. Seizing the moment, Nagisa strikes with a devastating blow, interrupting Aikido's attempt to break free, forcing him to spiral out of control. He is sent flying from the platform, plunging downward with devastating force, crashing into the stone floor of the cathedral below. The impact tears into the ground, creating a massive crater that spreads outward in a cloud of dust and debris. Lying amid the wreckage, Aikido can only gaze upward in a dazed state, his body battered and his spirit shattered. From above, Nagisa watches with a grim expression, silently acknowledging his resilience despite his dire circumstances, while the eyes of his former allies survey him with cold apathy. Through blurred vision, he perceives their indifferent whispers about his fate, the betrayal now fully complete. An official officer then steps forward, revealing their true purpose: to utilize a powerful artifact to steal his abilities and imprison them within a mystical ring. When someone questions whether such a plan is even feasible, Garen Aldolf confirms with detached certainty that, in theory, it could work. A high priest steps forward, his authority commanding as he orders everyone to give him space, preparing to commence the ritual. The priest begins performing a series of precise hand signs, initiating a potent magical forging process. From the ground, heavy enchanted chains erupt, spiraling upward to tightly bind the defeated hero's body. Aikido feels a searing heat coursing through him as the chains ignite with ominous glow, drawing dark and formidable energy directly from his very core. He screams in agony as the artifact forcibly siphons his life force, extracting his essence with brutal efficiency. Nagisa watches in disbelief, her eyes widened in shock that such a secret art, capable of stealing another's power, actually exists within their realm. Garen Aldolf regards Aikido with chilling detachment, commenting on his pitiable and tragic state. As his strength is drained, Aikido's final, desperate cry is a stark realization. He was nothing more than a tool, a pawn to be discarded once he served his purpose. The ritual reaches its violent conclusion, ripping his very soul from his body, leaving behind a fractured floor and a single, ominously glowing ring on the stone ground. The artifact pulses with immense stolen power, crackling with dark energy that dances across its surface. Flora, with a smug smirk, discusses how she will dispose of Aikido with Garen Aldolf, who now holds the ring containing his stolen might. Stripped of his abilities and rendered powerless, Aikido can do nothing but emit a silent, devastating scream filled with fury and betrayal. He mentally catalogues his sacrifices, the battles fought and the lives saved, only to realize he was nothing more than a tragic hero to be discarded when no longer needed. Tears of anguish well up as he questions the cruelty of those he once trusted. Flora dismisses his suffering coldly, claiming his sacrifice was merely a necessary evil for establishing peace. His remaining former allies observe silently, their expressions a mixture of grim resolve and indifference, as they witness his fall from grace. Bound and completely broken, the hero's gaze fixes firmly on those who betrayed him, his eyes burning with a hatred that refuses to die. His glare intensifies as he declares that all 5 nations involved in his downfall are now his enemies, vowing retribution. Flora, with mockery dripping from her voice, laughs at his rebellion, while Garen Aldolf issues a cold command for Nagisa to carry out the final act. She proceeds to draw her sword, a glint of deadly intent in her eyes, ready to deliver the decisive blow to her former comrade. As the blade begins its descent, Aikido's expression shifts unexpectedly, from one of despair to a sudden, shocking realization. An unsettling, almost malicious laugh escapes his lips, leaving those around him stunned and bewildered, uncertain of what to make of his sudden, inexplicable response. Flora questions whether the overwhelming pain has driven him to madness, yet the only response he offers is a maniacal laugh that grows even more unsettling. With a sinister grin stretching across his face, Aikido reveals that he has finally discovered the one part of his body still capable of movement. Suddenly, a tremendous surge of power bursts forth from the fallen hero, catching everyone present completely off guard. His former allies watch in horror as they realize that he is deliberately causing his own internal magic to spiral out of control, intentionally unleashing chaos. Gasping in disbelief, Garen Aldolf's features contort as he finally comprehends the hero's desperate and insane last-ditch plan. Aikido, with grim determination, proclaims that if he is destined to fall, he will take every single one of his betrayers with him into oblivion. The entire cathedral begins to tremble violently as cracks splinter across its sacred walls, and panic grips the remaining allies. Without warning, a devastating explosion shreds through the sacred grounds, demolishing the entire structure in an instant. Amidst the rubble and dust, the ring that contained the heretofore stolen power of the hero is hurled through the air, spinning wildly before disappearing from sight. The force of the blast is so immense that it reverberates through the very foundations of the nearby capital city, causing the ground to shudder with the impact. When the dust finally settles, all that remains of the once majestic grand cathedral is a dark, smoldering crater, an empty void where it had stood. From these ruins, a colossal armored figure emerges, towering over the surviving traitors with an almost mythic presence. It turns out that this imposing figure is none other than Garen Elf, now directly empowered by the glowing ring clasped firmly on his hand. Smirking confidently, he reveals that he has unleashed the ring's full power and, miraculously, has survived the devastating blast unscathed. Garen Elf remarks on Aikido's monstrous strength, acknowledging the terrifying force that had just been unleashed. The remaining allies breathe a flicker of relief, feeling reassured that their plan still succeeded in its dire purpose. Flora gazes down at the traitors still lingering, her expression filled with disdain as she questions the grim looks on their faces now that their mission has been accomplished. With the hero gone, one of her companions eagerly suggests that they might now seize the opportunity to fight among themselves in a bid to determine who should be the next strongest warrior in the world. Their words ignite fury amongst the others, who realize that such a battle would inevitably plunge the entire world into yet another devastating war. Smugly, Flora proclaims that she has fulfilled her role and declares her intention to leave, returning to her empire. She offers a final, hollow prayer for the future of the world, emphasizing that the hero has vanished and leaving behind an ominous silence. Later, the traitors address the public, spinning false stories about the hero's noble sacrifice to sway the citizens' opinions. However, in the shadows, many of those saved by Aikido refuse to accept these lies, distrusting the official version of events. The scene then shifts to a secluded atelier deep within a dense forest. As the world moves forward without its hero, a new figure appears, signaling that this narrative no longer revolves around the fallen warrior, but instead marks the beginning of a new chapter. A young woman observes silently as a man by a river contemplates the massive explosion of the previous day. Suddenly, her gaze is drawn to a body caught amidst floating driftwood, drifting downstream. Without hesitation, the man pulls the unconscious figure from the water, revealing the face of the fallen hero, Aikido, heralding the onset of a tale driven by revenge. His mind flashes back to the moment of his betrayal, a confusing chaos of emotions flooding his memory. He recalls his initial shock as his comrades coldly justified their actions, and he screams Flora's name in agony, overwhelmed by the treachery she had betrayed him with. In his mind, he desperately reaches out for her, unable to comprehend the extent of her deception. The flashback vividly shows Flora's face twisted into a chilling, triumphant smirk. The horrifying realization dawns on him that he was merely a pawn in a grand scheme he had never fully understood. His despair morphs into a blazing, burning rage that consumes him entirely. His eyes glow with a sinister darkness as a new, dark purpose takes hold within him. A single, icy vow takes root in his mind. He will never forgive those who betrayed him, and he will take from them everything they hold dear. His thoughts replay a solemn promise to exact merciless revenge on each and every one of his traitors, no matter the cost. The scene closes with a silent, furious resolve to annihilate them all. Aikido's eyes suddenly snap open, revealing a face lined with shock and confusion. He finds himself lying in an unfamiliar bed, bandaged and weak, his surroundings shrouded in darkness. A wave of disorientation washes over him as he rapidly scans his environment, trying to piece together what has happened. The incredible truth hits him. Somehow, against all odds, he is still alive. Before he can fully grasp this revelation, an intense, searing pain seizes his body, causing him to cry out loudly. The signal draws the attention of a young woman nearby, who hurries to inform her master that their patient is awake and suffering, their painkillers having long since worn off. The old man orders her to hold Aikido steady and to force-feed him a medicinal potion to alleviate his suffering. After a frantic struggle, the medicine begins to take effect, and the exhausted hero's trembling body finally starts to relax. As the medication begins to work, his labored breathing gradually stabilizes, although his eyes remain wide and filled with shock and disbelief. He weakly queries the two strangers about their identities, asking where he is and how long he has been unconscious. A sudden jolt of realization hits him, sinking in with full force, the unbelievable truth about his survival. His entire body trembles as he recognizes the extent of what has happened. The young woman scolds him angrily for his demanding tone, reminding him that he should be grateful they managed to save his life. The old man calmly explains that they deduced his noble stature from the fine, albeit tattered, clothes he wore, clothes that indicated a noble background. Silently, Aikido processes their words, recognizing that these strangers rescued him when he had lost everything. The man introduces himself as Crest, and his apprentice as Iris, prompting a quiet, remorseful apology from the fallen hero. Crest offers to assist him in contacting any family or acquaintances so they can come to pick him up once he recovers. Iris clarifies that he can stay until he is well again but emphasizes that he must leave once he has regained his strength. Crest's expression hardens with impatience, questioning how long Aikido expects their charity to continue. A tense confrontation ensues, as Crest's patience wears thin, and he begins to realize that Aikido is starting to understand the grim reality of his situation. Iris watches anxiously as Crest decides it's better to reveal the blunt, harsh truth immediately. Aikido demands to know what secrets they are hiding, but Iris's attempt to soothe him is abruptly cut off. A terrifying realization dawns on him as he looks down at his own body, covered in bandages. His eyes widen in disbelief as he stares at where his arms should be. Only emptiness remains. The horrifying truth crashes over him with the weight of a mountain. His limbs are gone. Crest's voice is grim and steady as he explains that removing his limbs was the only way to prevent his injuries from worsening beyond repair. Filled with despair, Aikido collapses completely, tears streaming down his face as Crest orders Iris to restrain him before he can do any further damage. He thrashes wildly, desperately pleading for someone to reassure him that all of this is merely a nightmare from which he will awaken. His mind races at a frantic pace, desperately trying to grasp how he survived the devastating explosion, only to find himself in this harrowing state. Vivid memories flash through his consciousness, especially the ritual, the chains binding him and the dark magic used, which he now sees as directly connected to his current, ghastly condition. His gaze falls upon the stumps where his limbs once were, the grim reality sinking deeper into his awareness with every passing second. Overcome by a mixture of revulsion, grief, and helplessness, his body convulses uncontrollably as he collapses inward, overwhelmed by despair. Iris watches him with pity-filled eyes, while Crest keeps a stern, unreadable expression, silently observing the hero's suffering. With his head bowed in utter defeat, the hero whispers broken questions, lamenting why such a cruel fate should befall him, as if questioning his deservingness of such suffering. In that moment, he comprehends that in his current state, he is unable to lead a normal life nor to seek the revenge he so desperately craves. Tears of pure anguish flow freely down his face as he begs his saviors softly, practically pleading for them to end his misery, to simply kill him and put an end to his suffering. Crest's fury suddenly erupts, and with a voice loud enough to shake the very room, he berates Aikido for throwing away the life he once fought so desperately to save. The old man roars that dwelling in despair is a luxury he has no right to indulge in. Looking down at those who still bear the mark of wholeness, Crest delivers a harsh, sharp slap across the hero's face, an angry effort to jar him out of his misery and push him toward some measure of resolve. Grabbing Aikido's face between his hands, Crest roars fiercely that he is still alive and that surrender is not an option. He declares that giving up is an insult to the very ordeal they have all endured. Iris steps forward gently, placing her hands on Aikido's face, her expression full of concern and pleading, urging him not to abandon the fragile life they managed to salvage. Her words finally penetrate the haze of despair, leaving Aikido speechless and stunned, as if struck by a sudden revelation. He casts his gaze downward, staring at his shattered body with a mixture of hopelessness and disbelief, questioning in despair what sort of life remains available to him now. Then, a sudden thought cuts through his despair. He recognizes this place as a workshop, a place of creation and repair. His eyes drift to Crest's leg, and to his amazement, he sees it is an intricate, finely crafted prosthetic. Crest, noticing his gaze, proudly reveals his own remarkable limb, a precisely made magical prosthetic. He begins to explain that this workshop is a product of a long-standing craft, tied directly to the history of warfare. He shares that a brutal and prolonged war has raged ever since the Demon King's forces first launched their unprovoked attack. As magical weapons grew more powerful, an increasing number of soldiers survived battles with catastrophic injuries, often losing limbs in the process. Faced with a critical shortage of able-bodied fighters, the ruling powers demanded a solution, a way to quickly restore their injured troops and send them back to the front lines. That necessity gave rise to the development of magical prosthetics. These devices were engineered to reconfigure the broken and battered soldiers, turning them into functional warriors once more. Crest, with pride burning in his eyes, claims to be the leading expert in the field, boasting about the sophistication of his creations. He explains that, astonishingly, these magical limbs can be controlled purely by willpower, integrated seamlessly with the user's mind. Aikido, overwhelmed by what he's hearing, is struck by a vivid mental image. With such prosthetics, he could stand once again, fight again, perhaps even seek the revenge he so desperately longs for. Hope flickers to life, igniting inside him like a sudden flame. For the first time, he dares to entertain the possibility that his journey might not be over. Filled with renewed determination, he asks the question that occupies his thoughts most. Could he be fitted for such prosthetic limbs, and could he learn to control all of them simultaneously? Iris quickly intervenes, explaining that such an endeavor is virtually impossible due to the demanding complexity of mana control that it would require. Crest adds that the immense magical energy necessary for such control would drain an ordinary person within moments of attempting to use them. When Crest mentions the staggering costs involved in creating or powering such advanced prosthetics, Aikido reveals his plan: to sell off his priceless noble heirlooms in order to fund the operation. Bowing his head with unwavering resolve, he pleads earnestly for their support, insisting he has an urgent mission to fulfill. His eyes burn with an unbreakable resolve and a silent vow that, no matter the cost, he will see his revenge completed. Both Crest and Iris are rendered speechless by the intensity and conviction behind his desperate plea. Reluctantly, Crest capitulates, bowing to Aikido's earnestness, much to Iris's astonishment. The old man admits that he feels a deep sense of responsibility for what has happened, recognizing that Aikido has his own profound reasons for risking everything in this desperate gamble. Iris, for her part, is horrified but understands that Aikido is fully aware of the potential consequences, even if it means risking total paralysis or worse. A calm but tense silence settles over the room as Iris wrestles with the weighty decision that could alter their patient's life forever. At last, driven by a sense of duty and compassion, she agrees to support the complex procedure, promising to see it through. Just as Crest consents to begin what will be a difficult and uncertain operation, Aikido surprises everyone by finally speaking clearly. He reveals that they do not even know each other's names. With a confident smile, he introduces himself anew, his spirit visibly rekindled and stronger than before. His renewed determination catches both Crest and Iris off guard. Iris affirms her unwavering support, and as twilight descends, preparations for the groundbreaking surgery finally commence. The initial step involves implanting intricate metal fittings into Aikido's body, designed to serve as anchoring points for the prosthetics. To minimize risks, they decide to begin with a single limb, knowing that Aikido will be required to endure the torture of the procedure while fully conscious. The first operation proceeds successfully, and Aikido is fitted with a temporary prosthetic limb used for training purposes. Crest then outlines a demanding rehabilitation plan, starting with the right arm before progressing to the other limbs. He explains that in order to move the prosthetic limb, Aikido must channel his mana through the artificial nerves, effectively learning to control a mechanical extension of himself. Aikido closes his eyes, focusing intensely, trying to sense the new connection vibrating within him. Iris gently guides him through the process, suggesting he begin by trying to move just a single finger. Suddenly, a massive surge of unrestrained energy erupts from within him, an uncontrollable outflow of raw power. The force blows through the workshop, creating a massive hole in the wall leading into the forest outside. Both Iris and Aikido stare in stunned silence, witnessing the crater he left behind. Aikido looks at his arm in shock, realizing that what was meant to be a simple twitch of a finger had unleashed this destructive wave of energy. Crest, visibly shaken, surveys the wreckage, understanding that Aikido possesses a dangerously high level of mana, far beyond what any normal individual could wield. Iris frantically tries to restrain him as the prosthetic limb crackles violently with untamed magical energy. Crest's gaze deepens, full of concern and curiosity, pondering what kind of man might possess such an extraordinary, almost frightening, degree of magical power. The remains of the training prosthetic lie shattered on the floor, a stark testament to Aikido's catastrophic failure to control himself. Crest deduces that any standard prosthetic would be utterly unable to withstand such a monstrous mana output. Determined, he declares that he will craft a custom-made limb for him, but warns that Aikido must pay for both the new prosthetic and the damage caused during the test. Iris offers him some food, her face a mixture of sympathy and frustration, aware of the difficult path that still lies ahead for them all. Aikido's eyes narrow with renewed resolve as he accepts the brutal reality of the training ahead. Despite his pride, he refuses to accept help from anyone else, feeling that his dignity demands he face the challenge alone, even if it means humbling himself and confronting his own helplessness. As a violent storm roared outside, a different storm began to churn within the hero himself, stirring a tempest of anguish and determination. Aikido tossed restlessly in his bed, his body racked by agonizing phantom pains that haunted him due to his missing limbs. These sensations, cruel illusions conjured by a merciless mind, defied any attempt at relief, stubbornly persisting despite the absence of physical cause. With no known remedy for his condition, he writhed in torment, cursed by the relentless agony that refused to fade. Yet, rather than succumb to despair, he channeled this suffering, transforming it into a fuel that ignited his unwavering thirst for revenge. His screams, filled with raw desperation and anger, echoed through the chamber, prompting Iris to realize that their schedule must be hastened. Time was of the essence for his surgery. A year had passed since those harrowing days, marked by endless surgeries and intense training designed to restore his mobility. At last, Aikido stood upright on a new pair of prosthetic legs, his body having endured countless trials. His first attempt to walk was clumsy and shaky, ending in a spectacular fall that predictably sparked Iris's frustration. As she scolded him for his recklessness, Aikido explained that his desperate desire to master his new limbs drove him to push beyond his limits. The dedicated assistance of his saviors helped him to get back on his feet. Yet Iris, exasperated by his impatience, questioned why he was in such a rush. During a quiet meal, Aikido revealed a startling truth that took Iris by surprise. He was only 17 years old. Her eyes widened in shock as she realized he was younger than she was. She then confided that she too had once been an orphan, taken in and raised by Crest, their benefactor. Aikido admitted that living among them was the first genuine companionship he'd known, and, admitting this with a hint of vulnerability, that he was actually beginning to enjoy the company. Iris, flustered and blushing, became aware that his presence had unexpectedly added a new spark to her life, making her days more interesting. Her formal words of thanks embarrassed him, as he struggled to comprehend this sudden shift in tone and mood. As the seasons changed over the years, Aikido underwent relentless adjustments and intensive training, always under Crest's watchful eye. For years later, Iris, now confident and determined, called out to Aikido across a lush, open field. She was ready for his next challenge. With a playful yet serious expression, she threw a basket filled with eggs high into the air, challenging him to catch them all or face the shame of going hungry at dinner. Calmly, Aikido stood amidst the falling eggs, his focus sharp and unwavering. He carefully tracked each egg's trajectory, his eyes narrowing in concentration. Suddenly, he erupted into action, his custom prosthetic limbs moving with blinding speed and precision. With a remarkable display of coordination and control, he intercepted every egg before it could shatter on the ground, catching each one flawlessly in his hands, his movements a ballet of skill. The audience watched in awe as Aikido held the fragile shells with a steady grip, demonstrating mastery over his powerful new limbs. Iris observed him with amazement, her eyes fixed on the full basket he had just filled. Nevertheless, a single egg had slipped past him in the final moments. Despite his impressive performance, he fumbled at the very end, tripping as he reached out to catch the last fragile shell. Both Iris and Crest were visibly impressed, praising his incredible progress despite the clumsy nature of his training limbs. Aikido reflected on how controlling his reconstructed body felt increasingly natural, likening it to mastering a video game. He explained that while his previous body was akin to a simple controller, now he wielded something more complex, a high-end arcade stick, offering far greater potential and responsiveness. His mastery left Iris in disbelief. She couldn't believe he hadn't managed to break a single egg during his impressive demonstration. Confident and resolute, Aikido then asked Crest to provide him with his real prosthetic limbs. Crest agreed, recognizing that his training period was over and that Aikido was finally ready for the real deal. He unveiled a custom-built, high-performance prosthetic design specifically for combat, ordering Iris to prepare for its final, permanent attachment. Aikido flexed his new, battle-ready hand, a grim smile crossing his face, an expression of grim satisfaction. He was breathless, stunned by the sheer power coursing through his reconstructed limbs. Without delay, Crest put him to the test, launching a heavy stone block into the air for Aikido to catch. The young hero didn't just catch it. He effortlessly pulverized the projectile, displaying an astonishing display of strength and speed that left Iris speechless. Satisfied with the incredible power now at his command, Crest casually handed over the final tuning adjustments to a bewildered Iris. His words resonated with a deeper meaning, explaining that this ultimate stage required a bond that transcended mere kinship, one rooted in understanding and trust. Iris blushed and stammered in response, feeling the weight of his words and the gravity of the moment. Meanwhile, Crest, ever the tease, enjoyed slightly mocking their flustered reactions, but Aikido remained focused, staring intently at his hand, lost in reflection over the long, arduous 4 years of recovery. With his new strength now firmly secured, his mind turned toward the traitors who had left him for dead, fueling his resolve for vengeance. Several months passed, and the story moved to a new city where his quest for retribution was about to begin anew. Crest, now bedridden with a cold, remained behind, while Aikido and Iris ventured into the bustling streets to run errands. Iris, seeking to lift the mood, pointed out a local food stall, but Aikido dismissively brushed it off as a trivial errand suitable for a child. His arrogant attitude shattered when Iris directed his attention to a statue in the town square, an almost perfect likeness of his former self. Her voice trembled as she told him that a hero cult had formed in his honor, a religion built around the belief that he had ascended to divine status. Before he could process this revelation, a mysterious figure, cloaked in a hood, approached them, offering to share more details about the cult's activities across the 5 great nations. The man lamented that, after Aikido's victory over the Demon King, the various nations had fallen back into petty conflicts and rivalries. He revealed that the world's great powers, now distracted by internal disputes, had allowed the borderlands, once protected zones, to devolve into lawless wastelands teeming with monsters and chaos. Aikido, listening carefully, recognized the grim truth in the man's words. While he had been healing, the world he fought so desperately to save was slowly unraveling. Their quiet discussion was abruptly shattered by the sudden appearance of a monstrous horde, emerging in a place where they least expected danger. Iris froze in terror as the terrifying threat became clear, while Aikido's instincts ignited, sensing the imminent peril. Instinctively, he scooped up a trembling Iris and made a desperate leap toward their workshop, urgency propelling every movement. Her clutching arms and his focused, unwavering expression underscored the gravity of the moment. Upon arriving, they found their workshop already overrun by monsters, an overwhelming scene of destruction. Anxiety clutched Aikido's chest as his thoughts raced to Crest and the others. The fight was already underway. Crest and the mysterious man battled fiercely against the relentless swarm. Relief flooded him as he saw Crest was still alive, but the urgency within him transformed into seething fury. Unleashing his newfound power, he struck down a monster with shocking force, cursing himself for the delay that had cost precious time. As he surveyed the devastation around him, a cold realization settled over him. The threat they faced was far graver than he'd feared, and the path of vengeance he intended to walk was now paved with even greater peril. This was an orchestrated assault carried out swiftly by the 5 great nations, their coordinated effort designed to strike with precision. Yet, their triumph proved to be fleeting, for they soon discovered Crest badly wounded, whispering in a feeble voice that their enemies had managed to steal everything, perhaps even their very existence. This traumatic event unleashed a vivid flashback within Iris, who desperately struggled to wash away the memories of her own past captivity and suffering. Her composure shattered completely as she relived the moment of abandonment, crying out desperately for her master not to leave her behind. In the aftermath of these harrowing events, Aikido found himself standing alone before a rudimentary grave, marked only by the tools and remnants of Crest's old workbench. The old man's life journey had now come to its tragic end. As he stood vigil over this makeshift resting place, Aikido's grief quickly hardened into a cold, unwavering resolve. Memories of Crest's final moments flooded his mind. How the old man refused offers of aid, knowing his time was drawing to a close. He recalled Iris rushing frantically to find medicine, desperately trying to save her master, unwilling to give up on him. Crest had coughed through the pain, more concerned about preserving his dignity in front of his students than about his own suffering. A wave of guilt washed over Aikido, causing him to question whether his own presence and actions had played a part in their tragic fate. However, Crest had once corrected him, blaming the 5 great nations for allowing monstrous beings to run unchecked across the land. The old man had then tried to convey an important message, not about Iris, but about Aikido himself. Suddenly, a mysterious voice interrupted his thoughts, revealing that someone had indeed seen the darkness of an avenger lurking within Aikido's eyes. From that very first day, Aikido's gaze had narrowed, the same burning intensity igniting within him once again. That stranger had provided him with the tools of vengeance, believing that his quest would ignite a fire so fierce it could burn away the corrupt nations. He remembered Crest's final instructions. The old man had trusted him to carry on his work if fate should take him. Clenched fists betrayed Aikido's acknowledgement that his new path was now set in stone. He could no longer turn back or be stopped. His mind drifted back to Crest's last plea, a desperate request for Aikido to protect his naive and trusting apprentice. The promise had been made, a vow to honor his master's final wishes, and to himself. He urged Crest to rest peacefully, free of worry. His grief then hardened into a chilling determination. Whatever the cost, he would exact his revenge. In the present moment, Aikido turned towards Iris, who was kneeling beside the grave, visibly grieving. He spoke softly, informing her that he had something important to reveal. Iris recoiled instinctively, horror and shock flickering across her face as she sensed the cold cruelty behind his words. Calmly, Aikido confirmed her worst fears, admitting that he had just told her the complete truth about his past, truths he had kept hidden for years. She insisted that she was no fool and argued that, after watching him closely for 4 long years, she knew he was not a liar. Responding to her challenge, Aikido's mind flashed to the betrayers who had wronged him, vowing that he would track them down and make them pay for what they owed. He declared that he could no longer remain by her side and that he had to pursue his path alone. Yet Iris, burning with resolve, refused to be left behind. She boldly proclaimed that she was coming with him, no matter the danger ahead. Aikido was taken aback by her unwavering determination, yet he listened as she reminded him that his quest against the 5 nations was the real threat, not only to himself but to everyone around him. He then recalled a time when Iris had pointed out that only she could perform the final adjustments on his mechanical limbs, her expertise critical in bringing his visions from the old world to life. He vividly remembered their design sessions, how her skill had turned his once wild ideas into tangible reality. Iris challenged him on how he planned to perform repairs and maintain his terrible and arduous mission of vengeance, especially on a path so long and grueling. Overwhelmed by her logic and driven by Crest's final wishes, Aikido finally lowered his head in defeat. Then, with a quiet but firm resolve, he conceded that her view was correct and that they should begin preparations for the journey ahead. Back at the ruined workshop, he hesitated but eventually agreed to let her join him, warning her, however, to act cautiously and not act recklessly. Iris, in turn, pointedly reminded him of the costs involved in repairing his mechanical limbs and emphasized that he was not allowed to die. She begged him to be careful, and her sincere concern appeared to finally reach him. Watching her closely, Aikido saw that she knew he was the only person remaining whom she could wholeheartedly depend on in this world. He bluntly pointed out how transparent her feelings of vulnerability and pain truly were, how poor she was at hiding her true emotions. Yet, he assured her that he had no intention of dying until he had paid every single debt he owed. He made another vow, this time, promising that he would never abandon her to face the hardships of the world alone. Moved by her emotions, Iris unexpectedly threw a light punch to his chest, a gesture that caught him entirely off guard. She smiled through tears, embracing his words as a solemn promise, a bond forged between them that could not be broken. Aikido recalled his last conversation with Crest, remembering the promise he had made to protect the old man's apprentice at all costs. His eyes burned with fierce determination, an unyielding resolve to keep Iris safe, no matter what dangers loomed ahead. With their new pact sealed, they began quickly packing supplies for the long and uncertain road ahead. Before setting out, Aikido revealed a hidden compartment, knowing they must conceal his true identity during their journey. Their first destination was the capital of the Fire Nation, called Rikuyu, where they planned to confront one of the 5 great heroes. A grim smile crossed his face as he named his target, Sharon, while Iris beamed with excitement about their dangerous new mission. With their purpose clear, the pair officially commenced their treacherous journey of revenge and redemption. As Aikido reflected, he realized that his desire to explore the world had taken a darker turn, aligning with his fervent companion's relentless pursuit of vengeance. Soon, they arrived at the imposing gates of Rikuyu, only to be met with a crowd of hopeless refugees pleading desperately for entry. The peasants begged the guards for shelter from the coming winter, but their voices were met only with cold rejection. Their desperation increased as they described the monsters roaming through the night, yet the guards paid them no mind, ignoring their plight. Suddenly, the mysterious figure appeared, his presence commanding silence among the chaos. With a single commanding gesture, he ordered the guards to silence the noisy crowd. From atop the city wall, he looked down calmly upon the assembled peasants, as if undisturbed by their suffering. The sight of a child gazing up at a strange, blinding light preceded a sudden attack, an explosive burst of energy violently striking down a guard on the wall. A monstrous wave of power shattered the city's defenses in one devastating blow, bringing down the guards in an instant. The stranger landed with immense force, unveiling himself as the source of this chaos. With absolute composure, he then ordered the surviving soldiers to quell the restless peasants, shifting blame onto the innocent refugees themselves. This man was Sharon, one of the 5 legendary heroes, irritated that these commoners had dared to disturb his peace. A new info panel reveals that Sharon is celebrated throughout the capital not only as a legendary hero but also as a renowned martial arts instructor, holding a prestigious position that commands respect and admiration. Meanwhile, a detailed map traces the 3-day journey undertaken by Aikido and Iris, illustrating the route they took as they approached a small town situated just beyond Rikuyu's outskirts. During their pause, the 2 characters stop at a modest local inn or tavern, taking a moment to regroup and gather their thoughts before attempting to enter the heavily fortified city ahead. Iris, sitting silently as she picks at her food, clearly feels distressed by their current predicament, her expression troubled and her mood subdued. She laments aloud that they cannot pass through into Rikuyu without a proper travel permit, which they do not possess, making their arrival into the city impossible by normal means. Aikido, listening carefully, quickly recognizes the core problem. Their major flaw is their lack of official documentation. Since he is officially declared dead and Iris is an orphan, Neither of them has any identification that can serve as proof of who they are, effectively preventing them from passing the city's security checkpoints. Iris leans towards him, desperate for a solution, asking him to devise some plan to slip past the guards and recover his stolen abilities. Aikido explains that his power was sealed into a ring, a relic now held by his betrayers, which complicates their efforts to reclaim his full strength. He concludes that their only option is to confront Sharon directly to retrieve the ring, but he expresses frustration over their current inability to get into the city without a plan. Their serious discussion is suddenly interrupted by a commotion nearby. A man at a nearby table suddenly cries out in distress, drawing everyone's attention. Iris, already annoyed, is visibly disgusted by the ruckus, grumbling that such loud disturbances are ruining her appetite. The onlookers identify the noisy group as hunters, a special class of mercenaries, notable for their carefree attitude and wealth, which allows them to indulge in such unruly behavior without concern. An information panel explains that hunters are elite mercenaries who emerge from obscurity primarily to fight monsters and other threats following the defeat of the Demon King. Recognizing their exclusive privilege, Aikido realizes that hunters are exempt from the usual border inspections and formalities. This insight sparks a new idea, and Aikido boldly approaches the hunters' table with a request to join their party, hoping to leverage their special access to reach Rikuyu. The leading hunter's gaze turns cold and skeptical as he observes the unexpected interruption. He smirks, finding Aikido's daring to approach him amusing, while Iris looks on in horror, her face betraying her concern. The hunter leader taunts Aikido, mockingly asking if he simply wants to know how to become a hunter himself. Standing up with a sneer, he offers to cut to the chase and introduce Aikido to the right people, implying they are the key to his goal. He dismisses Aikido dismissively, commenting that his scrawny frame would likely get him killed instantly in the dangerous streets. Calmly, Aikido counters that he is stronger than the hunter, and if he is weak, then the hunter himself is weak as well. This provocative challenge ignites the hunter's fury. His patience snaps, and he lunges forward, enraged and ready to fight. However, Aikido, demonstrating incredible agility and calm, notes confidently that his opponent's sole asset is speed. With smooth, almost inhuman movements, he effortlessly evades the wild, reckless attacks targeting him from all sides, weaving through the chaos with calculated precision. The hunter leader's frustration grows as he fails repeatedly to land a single blow, his face twisting in disbelief. Driven by rage, he orders his companions to join the fight, each one attacking with brute force. Yet, as they close in, Iris remembers that Aikido's limbs were meticulously designed to exceed human natural capabilities. His body was crafted for such extraordinary agility. Exhibiting flawless technique, Aikido moves like a blur, dodging and countering with deadly precision. He lands a devastating elbow strike that hits the leader right in the jaw, causing the man to reel back in shock, realizing too late that this seemingly scrawny kid is far more dangerous than he appeared. Humiliated and furious, the hunter leader draws a sword, preparing to escalate matters into a lethal confrontation. Iris gasps as Aikido's expression hardens, his eyes beginning to glow with a deadly, cold focus. The tension reaches a boiling point as the hunter's anger overtakes reason, and he lunges with murderous intent. At this critical moment, a scarred man, Garkins, intervenes decisively. Gripping the attacking sword firmly, Garkins commands his subordinate to stand down, calmly asserting that this is a fight he cannot possibly win. Garkins then orders his remaining men to retreat, impressed by the display of power Aikido just demonstrated and recognizing that the hot-headed hunter was no match for him. To everyone's surprise, the true leader of the hunters, Garkins himself, bows deeply to Aikido and offers a sincere apology for their reckless subordinate's behavior. Garkins then invites Aikido and Iris to a private room to discuss the possibility of Aikido joining their ranks as a hunter, an offer that catches them both off guard but intrigues Aikido deeply. In a private chamber, Garkins makes it clear that he comprehends their purpose. He can help Aikido obtain a hunter's license, which will give them the access they need to Rikuyu. He offers to write a letter of recommendation, explaining that his own guild is in dire need of strong, skilled recruits and would be eager to bring Aikido into their fold. The hunter leader, still curious, asks how Aikido managed to remain so composed during the confrontation, revealing that he had been observing Aikido's evaluation of their group from the start. Garkins hands Aikido a sealed letter, explaining that it will serve as his official entry ticket into the guild and as a pass for new assignments. As they prepare to part ways, Garkins suddenly questions Aikido about his training, having detected a familiarity in his fighting style, which belonged to the renowned Sharon style. Aikido's expression hardens at this mention, and memories flood back. Painful recollections of training directly under Sharon, his eventual target. Garkins watches him closely, awaiting an answer to this dangerous, pointed inquiry. Aikido deflects the question with a cryptic remark, leaving the hunter leader with a vague hint of his background as they step into the night, their shadows stretching long behind them. The following day, Aikido and Iris arrive at the local hunter guild to begin their mission. They meet with their client, a merchant named Lugius, who eagerly welcomes them as his escorts. Lugius, however, sheepishly admits that he can only offer them half the usual fee, much to Iris's dismay, who feels the lower pay puts them at greater risk. As Iris voices her concerns about the inadequate compensation, Lugius grows visibly anxious, fearing that he may be left to face the perils alone. Exhausted by the prospect of the difficult journey ahead, Iris slumps against their wagon, already dreading the upcoming hardships en route to Rikuyu. Their departure is abruptly halted by the return of the hunter leader, who with his crew stands in their path, evidently seeking a rematch. Aikido's gaze hardens, sharp and unwavering, showing zero patience for their renewed threat. Without hesitation, he maneuvers the confrontation into a secluded alley away from prying eyes, where their conflict can occur unobserved. In an instant, Aikido single-handedly defeats the entire group, each man groaning in pain on the ground. He walks away from the scene with a look of disgust, murmuring that the leader's naive arrogance reminds him of someone from his distant past. Before leaving, Aikido seizes the defeated hunter by the chin, forcing him to listen as he delivers a final, chilling warning. He reveals that his initial intention was to steal the hunter's license, but the leader's rare decency changed his mind. Instead, he now intends to send a clear message. Aikido's cold voice ends with a stark piece of advice. He warns the hunter never to cross him again, as his patience has all but run out. His piercing stare leaves no doubt about the deadly seriousness of his threat, ensuring that the message is understood. Returning to their wagon, Aikido, with a calm demeanor, assures a visibly worried Iris that his previous actions were merely about tying up loose ends. Sensing that the way forward has finally been cleared, their group officially begins its march toward the grand capital city of Rikuyu. As they travel along the winding road through the sprawling countryside, Iris questions whether their recent deeds might be branding them as villains. Aikido, however, dismisses such doubts with quiet confidence, clenched fist clenched in resolve. He understands that a direct confrontation with his enemies is not an option at this moment, and to succeed, he must become more ruthless than anyone he faces. Vowing to bring his traitor to justice, he reflects that if it takes eroding his heroic reputation, so be it. Perhaps even transforming into a villain himself is a necessary step in his quest for vengeance. Their long journey stretches out before them, a passage through vast, picturesque landscapes that gradually become more unfamiliar. Their merchant companion, eager and chatterbox, excitedly recounts stories from his travels, but his tone turns somber as he mentions an unsettling rise in monster activity across these lands. He sincerely thanks the group for their protection so far, addressing Aikido by his new alias, Ku. Iris promptly raises an eyebrow at the unusual choice of name, prompting a moment of flustered silence from Aikido, who quickly tells her, with a hint of irritation, to drop the subject. Internally, he reflects that Ku was his family name in a past life, an uncommon but discreet combination that suited his need for concealment. Curious, Aikido presses to learn more about the monsters troubling the area, and the merchant confirms that on this well-traveled road, most threats are low-level and manageable. Lucas, the scholar among them, admits that his knowledge comes from a monster encyclopedia, a revelation that surprises Aikido, who had no idea such a book even existed. The merchant happily offers his well-worn copy, explaining that the Hunters Guild sells these manuals to aid adventurers like them. As Aikido begins to examine the fragile pages of the book, Iris leans in with genuine enthusiasm, captivated by the intricate illustrations inside. Aikido, meanwhile, can't help but reflect on how drastically the world has changed since his past. The encyclopedia showcases an array of monsters ranging from D-rank beasts, such as tiny, pesky vermin, to more formidable creatures like C-rank humanoids. It also includes descriptions of terrifying threats from the higher ranks, such as an A-rank dragon and even a world-ending S-rank demon that is rumored to be ruling over entire regions. As their march continues, Iris becomes increasingly absorbed in the monster manual, finding its contents oddly familiar. Aikido takes a moment to analyze the book's secrets more deeply, but Iris snaps at him for slacking on his guard duties. Their petty quarrel is suddenly interrupted when the merchant spots two shadowy figures rapidly approaching their wagon, moving with dangerous intent. These figures are identified as C-rank horn rabbits, charging straight at them with reckless aggression. Iris's patience finally snaps. Her piercing gaze hardens as she demands that Aikido finally do his job. Without diverting his attention from his book, Aikido swiftly calculates their trajectory and the impending attack. In an instant, both horn rabbits are struck down mid-leap by an unseen force, disintegrating into nothingness. As the remains fade away, a glistening magic stone is left behind, a rare and valuable core of a defeated monster. Iris and the merchant stand in stunned silence, marveling that Aikido managed to eliminate two C-rank creatures with such ease and nonchalance. They learn that these magic stones are, in fact, a monster's core, a vital and sought-after resource in their world. Recognizing that this simple encounter could be a lucrative opportunity, Aikido's prosthetic arm catches their attention. It is a marvel of magical craftsmanship, constructed from shining silver and capable of channeling impressive amounts of power. With the minor threat eliminated, the merchant cheerfully urges them onward, completely unfazed by Aikido's display of strength. Their journey continues across days, carrying them through breathtakingly beautiful, yet perilous mountain passes under a star-studded sky. When night falls, Iris diligently practices her swordsmanship, determined to improve her skills, while Aikido remains deeply engrossed in the monster encyclopedia, scanning its pages for information. During a particularly cold night, Aikido keeps watch over the camp, quietly covering Iris with a blanket while she sleeps soundly. The following morning, Aikido pulls back the wagon's cover, revealing an enormous mountain blocking their path, a towering obstacle looming majestically ahead. Suddenly, a vast cloud of dust erupts on the horizon, signaling the approach of something large. The dust cloud is caused by a massive herd of horned rabbits, but a far more dangerous threat looms above them. Out of the sky swoops a monstrous griffin, roared loud enough to shake the earth as it dives rapidly toward their group. The enormous beast lands abruptly in their path, and even Aikido, usually composed, cannot hide his surprise at such a formidable sight. Its powerful landing kicks up a shockwave that jars the ground beneath their feet and throws their wagon into chaos. While the merchant panics over the sight of an A-rank monster, Aikido calmly deduces that the griffin is simply hunting the horned rabbits, its original prey having fled. With its primary target gone, the creature's hungry gaze shifts toward the travelers, viewing them as potential prey. Iris, quick to act, leaps forward to intercept the massive beast and protect the wagon. With a fierce kick directed straight at its head, she lands a solid blow, staggering the griffin and forcing it to stumble backward. The beast roars in fury, but Aikido, with a sardonic tone, questions whether it's surprised to finally face a genuine challenge. Then, with a flick of his prosthetic arm, he fires a high-tension wire, which whizzes through the air and snares the griffin's neck at the moment it attempts to lift off. The creature struggles, but Aikido pulls relentlessly, yanking the enormous beast down from the sky and slamming it forcefully into the ground. The impact leaves the griffin incapacitated, while Aikido's expression remains cool and composed. With the path now clear, they finally arrive at a bustling town, much to the relief of the merchant. As the injured griffin flaps away into the distance, Iris mutters her frustration that Aikido let it escape, while the merchant, awestruck, can't help but marvel at their power. As they exchange glances, suspicion begins to flicker in the merchant's eyes. He senses that Aikido's true strength surpasses that of a mere bodyguard. When he tries to question Aikido about his abilities, the latter dismisses the concern with a curt gesture, and Iris quickly silences her own provocative comments. The merchant is left puzzled, unable to comprehend their nonchalant bickering, and only watches as they continue with their journey. Having left the griffin behind, Aikido refocuses the group's attention, emphasizing that their primary goal remains to reach Rikuyu as quickly as possible. Iris then suddenly spots a massive structure ahead from her vantage point, pointing it out to the ever-smirking Aikido. Their long journey draws to an end as they stand before the magnificent main gate of the capital city, Rikuyu. Meanwhile, under the cold, pale light of the moon, a mysterious figure sits calmly on the carcass of the defeated griffin. A stern monk inspects the scene with keen eyes, marveling quietly at how a single individual managed to slay an A-rank monster, something he considers nearly impossible to achieve. The figure lurking in the shadows is a young man whose smug expression and confident posture mask a deep sense of superiority. He dismissively belittles the monk standing before him, claiming that the defeat of the griffin was solely due to the efforts of 5 brave heroes. This self-styled hero then commands his subordinate to fetch a powerful magic stone and to bring back a beautiful woman who is married. His cruelty becomes evident as he taunts the man's calm demeanor, insisting that the woman's husband be brought along to witness her loss, relishing in the dominant control he seeks to exert. A close-up shot reveals a grin on his face that is coldly depraved and unervingly sinister. At that moment, a dark memory flashes in his mind, revealing a scene of a man writhing in agony on the ground, while a younger version of Aikido looks on in horror and helplessness. The villain's features distort into a crazed, almost ecstatically joyful smile, exposing how much he derives pleasure from others' suffering. Elsewhere, Iris keenly observes that some individuals seem to gain satisfaction from taking what is most treasured by others. The villain confirms this twisted outlook, declaring that the feeling of total domination over someone else is, without question, the most exhilarating experience. Meanwhile, at the city gate of the capital, Aikido stands calmly, presenting a sealed document to a stern-faced gate guard. After explaining their mission, the massive gates begin to slowly creak open, prompting Iris to note the dubious reputation Aikido has acquired, an infamous reputation that precedes him. She is utterly amazed as her gaze takes in the vast, magnificent cityscape of Rikuyu, a sight she's never before laid eyes on. The sprawling metropolis stands as a testament to the power of the End Kingdom, with grandiose architecture stretching endlessly into the horizon. A local resident explains that this capital is the bustling heart of a kingdom housing over 20 million inhabitants, teeming with commerce and vibrant daily life. Immediately, her attention is captured by a street vendor who entices her with local delicacies. Her stomach growls as she is pulled toward the tempting aromas. Aikido, however, quickly nips her sightseeing plans in the bud, reminding her that they need to focus on their urgent business first, before indulging in leisure. His tone leaves no room for compromise, signaling his impatience with her distractions. Without further ado, instead of heading to the guild, they make their way to an ancient dojo known as Shiryu. His gaze settles on the entrance in silence, and when he stops to stare at it, a flood of intense memories rushes through his mind upon seeing the sign Shirao Ryu. The name triggers vivid images of past conflicts, familiar faces, and old battles that seem to echo from his history. A palpable wave of killing intent radiates from Aikido, so powerful that it causes the very ground beneath him to crack. The sudden surge of his energy makes nearby wild animals fill the area with frantic noise, instinctively sensing the immense danger he now radiates. Iris, alarmed by this overwhelming and terrifying aura, calls out to him in concern, her voice trembling at the shadowed figure's vengeful appearance. In response, Aikido gradually reins in his rage, acknowledging her concern with a brief nod before turning away from the dojo. He glances back at the sign, deducing that Shaolin, the person they seek, is most likely not present at that place. Worry crossing her face, Iris suggests they first gather intelligence before risking reckless action, emphasizing her wise caution. Aikido questions a nearby official, who informs them that Shaolan is either on a kingdom-wide inspection tour or engaged in a mission to hunt down dangerous monsters for the royal army. These details prompt the two to relocate to a quiet inn, where they can carefully plan their next move away from prying eyes and ears. As Aikido reflects on the situation, he realizes his recent outburst was a close call. Iris's timely intervention had saved him from storming the dojo and risking exile from the capital. He admits that his true challenge is not merely to find Shaolan, but also to retrieve a cursed artifact from a demonic entity, adding complexity to their quest. Gazing toward the royal palace, he supposes that their target might be held within its guarded walls. He dismisses the idea of attacking directly as too dangerous and reckless. Instead, he decides to manipulate circumstances, setting a trap that will lure his enemy out into the open, confident that the adversary cannot resist the challenge. Sitting at a desk, Aikido begins to craft a plan to provoke Shaolan into revealing himself. Remembering his rival's arrogant and combative nature, he devises a crude but effective trap, a taunting challenge note designed to infuriate and provoke Shaolan into a reaction. With a broad, triumphant smile, Aikido takes pride in his childish, yet cunning, scheme, believing it to be perfect for stirring up his opponent. He intends to circulate it throughout the capital, confident that it will attract Shaolan's attention. Iris immediately scolds him, calling him an idiot, pointing out that only a fool would fall for such a simple trap. She criticizes that despite his usual calm and rational demeanor, his obsession with revenge has clouded his judgment. She plainly states that his relentless pursuit of vengeance makes him blind to the world around him, risking him missing vital clues or making costly mistakes. To comfort him, she pats his head reassuringly and urges him to calm down, emphasizing the importance of gathering reliable information first. Later, Iris returns with a flyer, revealing that she had learned about a major annual event while mingling with local hunters in the city. It turns out there is a grand martial arts tournament held in the kingdom's spectacular Grand Colosseum, a perfect setting for a decisive confrontation. She discloses that the current reigning champion is none other than Wan Shaolan, and that he is defending an astonishing winning streak spanning more than a century. Her revelation confirms that Shaolan will definitely participate, as his unwavering pride and record make him a formidable opponent. Aikido's eyes narrow as he considers this. He knows from past experiences that his rival's arrogant personality would never pass up such a chance to face a worthy foe. Clenching his fist, he realizes this tournament presents the ideal opportunity to confront Shaolan, to reclaim what was stolen and settle the score once and for all. A wicked grin spreads across Aikido's face as he confirms that Shaolan is his top priority, much to Iris's discomfort. With the tournament approaching, the stage is set for a final, decisive confrontation. Each faction prepares its forces for the impending clash, as the grand martial arts event promises a fierce and unforgettable showdown. The colossal gates of the Imperial Colosseum stand tall and imposing, ready to host the kingdom's most prestigious fighting competition. As fireworks explode into the night sky, illuminating the festival's jubilant atmosphere, Iris marvels at the scale of the celebration and questions whether Aikido is truly prepared for the challenge ahead. Aikido reveals a makeshift prosthetic arm, confidently asserting that its limited power will be enough to secure victory. He admits that his current prosthetic is still inadequate to defeat Shaolan but dismisses this as a minor issue. With a hint of bravado, he states that he is about to modify his replacement arm right then and there, much to Iris's surprise. A flashback takes them back to the previous night, showcasing Iris's frantic worries as Aikido insisted on building a new prosthetic from a complex blueprint overnight. He argued that without his former strength, he was at a severe disadvantage and desperately needed a new weapon to ensure victory. He now demands that she complete the advanced prosthetic device within only 3 days, ensuring it will be ready just in time for the tournament finals. Aikido confidently asserts that deadlines exist to drive results, leaving Iris momentarily stunned as she navigates his demanding logic. Then, with a pointed gesture, he shifts the entire responsibility for his victory onto her shoulders, making it painfully clear that failure is not an option. Left with no alternative, and no choice but to comply, the pouty Iris steels herself and throws herself into her work with renewed determination. Her goal becomes crafting nothing less than a masterpiece, something worthy of her effort and deserving of his trust. As Aikido makes his way toward the massive Colosseum, Iris's voice suddenly calls out, urgently asking him to wait. Moments later, a thunderous strike of a colossal gong echoes through the air, formally marking the start of the martial arts tournament. An energetic announcer eagerly kicks off the proceedings, rousing the enormous crowd gathered in the Grand Colosseum. She explains that today's preliminary round is a sudden death battle royale featuring over 100 fighters all vying for a coveted spot in the main event. When Aikido steps forward to register, the announcer briefly mentions the defending champion, Wan Shaolin, who is already seated near the stage, aiming for his 6th consecutive victory. The announcer then details the format. The victors from this preliminary elimination will continue fighting until the field narrows to just 16 fighters, who will then form the final tournament bracket. While registering, Aikido confirms that, although magic is strictly forbidden in the competition, his specially designed prosthetic arm, powered by magical energy, is considered a legal part of his body. An official explains that many past contestants have used similar prosthetics, which are widely accepted as legitimate enhancements. Signing the registration form, Aikido remarks internally that the rules are surprisingly lenient, allowing weapons but strictly forbidding any attempt to intentionally disable an opponent under threat of disqualification. He scoffs subtly at these regulations, knowing well that a ban on magic means little if he can simply reach the finals and settle his personal score. An almost sinister, quiet laugh escapes him as he signs the form, unnerving the nearby official who senses his intense focus. The staff hands him a number tag, D30, while grimly realizing that Group D is likely to face an inevitable disaster. Nearby, a fellow contestant remarks on the uncanny coincidence of so many dangerous fighters being grouped together. He points out several of the most notorious entrants, drawing attention to a particularly frightening figure. The camera lingers on a mercenary named Fan, a man with a horrifying, almost inhuman visage, known in the underground circles as Impalement Phone. Fan has an infamous reputation for brutally defeating his enemies and is solely motivated by the prize money. Fuan, another contender, glances disdainfully at Aikido's entire group, dismissing them as insignificant obstacles in his path. Then, an official announces that the Group D preliminaries are about to begin, warning that losing your badge will result in immediate disqualification. As chaos brews in the crowded arena, Fan perceives the commotion as the perfect cover to eliminate rivals quietly. Meanwhile, the fighters scramble for central positions, but spectators notice something strange. Aikido has calmly moved to the very edge of the stage. His tactic is clear. He intends to conserve his strength and finish the round quickly. The official then signals the start of the Group D Battle Royale, and the arena erupts into a wild, chaotic melee. Steel clashes and shouts fill the air. Yet amidst the tumult, some fighters realize with growing alarm that Aikido is missing from his initial place. A bulky contestant stares in astonishment, realizing that the mysterious fighter who vanished is now standing right before him, seemingly missing an arm. Another fighter looks down, bewildered, as his weapon has been inexplicably entangled in a fine, unbreakable wire. The entire arena descends into a frenzy when dozens of fighters discover their weapons caught in a vast web woven almost instantaneously. The crowd watches with awe as Aikido maneuvers effortlessly, dragging the tangled mass of fighters across the arena stage. His cunning moves reveal that he used a large stone pillar at the edge of the arena as his anchor point. An enraged giant, caught directly in the trap, roars furiously and confronts Aikido. Calmly, Aikido disarms the colossal opponent, catching the giant's massive axe and considering it a fitting tool for his next move. Using the stolen weapon, he cuts the thick wire tied around the pillar, causing the massive stone structure to groan ominously. It begins to topple forward directly toward the helpless fighters below. To complete his strategy, Aikido strikes the stage with his prosthetic fist, shattering the ground beneath him and causing a ripple of destruction. One contestant, eyes wide with terror, finally realizes the full extent of Aikido's plan. The web of wires tightens simultaneously, pulling all the fighters into a compact, helpless cluster at the center of the stage. Panic erupts as the fighters are violently dragged across the floor, their weapons caught in the web, rendering them powerless. The tangled multitude of warriors becomes a massive, uncontrollable wrecking ball, sliding toward the broken edge of the arena. With the anchor rope cut, the tension accumulated in the web is suddenly released, an explosive surge of energy. Aikido's powerful strike acts as the final trigger, unleashing a devastating shockwave that sweeps through the trapped fighters. The announcer, witnessing this display of sheer destructive genius, stands speechless as this seemingly impossible event unfolds right before her eyes. In one astounding move, Aikido single-handedly eliminates all his opponents from the ring, emerging as the sole survivor of Group D. Watching the spectacle from his private box, Wan Shaolon, the reigning champion, inquires with a smirk about the intriguing new fighter named Kwakido. He dismisses the name dismissively, confident that the newcomer will be forgotten once their inevitable confrontation occurs. Meanwhile, Fan, the once feared mercenary, lies defeated among the pile of eliminated fighters, serving as a stark testament to Aikido's overwhelming strength. On the second day of the tournament, the selection process has narrowed the field dramatically, from over 600 hopefuls down to just 16 elite fighters. The announcer enthusiastically kicks off the main event, ready to unveil the tournament's bracket and the final contenders. To Aikido's surprise, his first opponent is a practitioner of the Shaolin style, a direct disciple of his sworn enemy, indicating a personal and intense confrontation ahead. Meanwhile, the undefeated champion, Wan Shaolon, is seated at the top of the opposite bracket, ensuring a seemingly unobstructed path toward the final. Behind the scenes, Aikido clenches his fist tightly, fighting to contain his frustration and anxiety in the face of this new, unexpected twist in the tournament's progression. Realizing that he is positioned on the opposite side of the bracket from Shaolin, the fighter understands that their confrontation can only occur in the tournament's final round. This realization poses a significant problem for him, as his highly advanced prosthetic limb is still incomplete, leaving him underprepared for that ultimate battle. From his private viewing box, Shaolin, with a self-satisfied smirk, calls over his disciple Kaku, the same fighter currently matched against his opponent, Aikido. Shaolin explains that with this arrangement, Kaku's victories will serve only to enhance the reputation of the Shaolin fighting style, building towards their eventual clash in the final encounter. The tournament's ruling authority, an authoritative and intense figure, reminds Shaolin that this competition is essentially a proxy war, with the nation's honor hanging in the balance. He glares sharply at Shaolin and sternly forbids him from losing under any circumstances. Meanwhile, Kaku, adopting a playful tone, tries to soothe the visibly agitated dignitary, while Shaolin maintains a confident smirk, unfazed by the mounting pressure. The king, grasping Shaolin firmly by the shoulder, desperately tries to stress that a defeat now could shatter their country's prestige and invite humiliation or even catastrophic retaliation from their rivals. Shaolin, dismissing these concerns with cool assurance, turns to lead Kaku away, promising him a substantial reward should he succeed. As the tournament begins, the first match features an exuberant, masked fighter known as Kiku Karasu, the so-called Masked Prince. His opponent is revealed to be Aikido, who effortlessly deflects a powerful, sweeping strike, leaving Kiku Karasu momentarily stunned. Demonstrating remarkable skill, Aikido quickly seizes the masked opponent's arm, halting the assault completely. In an astonishing display of strength, Aikido suddenly hurls Kiku Karasu out of the ring, winning the match instantaneously. As the second bout kicks off, a flamboyant combatant nicknamed Iron Rose steps into the ring, clearly intrigued by the mystery surrounding Aikido's seemingly superhuman arm. Iron Rose lunges with his rapier, but his blade ricochets harmlessly off Aikido's leg, causing Iron Rose to freeze in astonishment. Aikido then reveals that his leg is also a prosthetic, which fuels Iron Rose's fury as he demands a fair fight. Frustrated by the interruption, Aikido opts to settle the matter swiftly and decisively, ending the match with minimal effort. With a single, well-placed move, Aikido neutralizes Iron Rose, securing yet another quick and effortless victory. An onlooker comments quietly that the man with the prosthetic arm is far more than just a clever trickster. He possesses real, undeniable power. Other competitors debate Aikido's true potential, considering him a dark horse capable of surprising everyone. However, his upcoming match is against a disciple trained in Shaolin style, adding a layer of anticipation to the tournament. As spectators discuss the forthcoming battles, another imposing fighter makes a dramatic entrance into the arena. The announcer announces the third match, which features a swordsman facing off against the reigning champion, none other than the famed hero Wan Shaolin. The female announcer appears flustered as she struggles to handle the overwhelming crowd roar for the beloved champion. Shaolin basks in the adoration, while Aikido, observing from the stands, keeps his intense gaze fixed on the champion and the court below. When the referee signals the start, Shaolin's opponent, the swordsman, ignores the usual formalities and immediately lunges forward with lethal intent. Mikito, one of the spectators, widens his eyes, sensing the deadly seriousness of the swordsman's weapon, while Shaolin remains calm, unconcerned. The swordsman reveals that he wields a live blade, causing the referee to react with shock, though Shaolin merely smirks. Shaolin mockingly challenges the swordsman's murderous intent, sarcastically asking whether he's some kind of fanatic or fanatic follower. The swordsman's face contorts with pure hatred as he screams that Shaolin must still remember him. He introduces himself as Itsumi Musashi, furiously accusing Shaolin of having murdered his wife, an accusation Shaolin dismisses with an air of feigned ignorance. As Musashi prepares to strike, Shaolin casually raises his hand, signaling him to wait. He claims he needs a moment to recall the past event, which is vividly revealed through a painful flashback. Musashi's vow to seek revenge over his dying wife's body. With Shaolin's cruel grin lingering in his mind, he admits that he had almost forgotten her, then ominously offers to reunite Musashi with her in the afterlife. Despite Musashi's ferocious attack, Shaolin effortlessly halts the deadly strike with just 2 fingers. The entire arena, including Aikido, stares in stunned silence, unable to comprehend how he managed such an impossible feat. Aikido, with dawning horror, realizes that Shaolin stopped Musashi's blade with an unprotected finger, a feat that reveals his overwhelming skill. Shaolin then unleashes a relentless flurry of lightning-fast blows, overwhelming Musashi with his exceptional speed and precision. A flashback explains that one of Shaolin's 5 secret abilities is something called the Grace of Power, which grants him superhuman strength and agility. This extraordinary power is demonstrated when Aikido himself lifts a colossal boulder weighing dozens of tons with seemingly minimal effort. Back in the present, Shaolin boasts that his incredible feats are simply the result of masterful energy control. With a commanding snap of his fingers, he claims to have finally recalled the memories Musashi sought to avenge, the moment he overpowered Musashi's wife. Shaolin describes how he overwhelmed her, twisting her into a figure of his sadistic delight, a memory that twists his face into a sinister grin. Musashi's eyes burn with pure hatred as Shaolin mockingly refers to her tragic end as the best, fueling Musashi's murderous rage. Overcome by fury, Musashi lunges at the now dark-energized Shaolin, who is suddenly enveloped in a terrifying shadowy aura. Shaolin responds with a single devastating punch, which sends Musashi flying across the arena, his body and spirit shattered under the tremendous force. Musashi crashes into the stadium wall, scattering debris and his sword into the air, as the crowd witnesses the brutal display. As the shock reverberates through the audience, Shaolin calmly instructs his disciple Kaku, while Aikido observes silently, understanding the implications of what has just occurred. Quickly, Aikido leaps from the stands to the arena floor, standing before the defeated, broken swordsman. His gaze locks onto Shaolin, who turns with his disciple, questioning the identity of the mysterious intruder. Murmurs ripple through the crowd as they recognize the newcomer as contestant D30, who has caused this unexpected interruption. Shaolin glares back at the intruder, visibly irritated by his audacity. and demands to understand the reason for his presence. Kaku steps forward, curious about Aikido's connection to Shaolin, sensing some vague familiarity. Mockingly, Kaku offers to handle the problem himself, telling Aikido to wait for his own turn to fight. Meanwhile, the battered Musashi, showing unmistakable determination, begins to rise once more, refusing to surrender despite his injuries. Aikido's eyes remained fixed on the ring, a stoic mask concealing the turmoil within, yet his gaze betrayed a profound concern for the swordsman fighting before him. Despite his formidable willpower and unwavering resolve, Musashi finally succumbed to the injuries he sustained in the match. He fainted while still standing, his body trembling and on the verge of collapse, just as Shaolin was declared the winner. With the conclusion of the quarterfinals, the announcer's voice called for a brief intermission, and the vast stadium was left pulsing with a mixture of excitement and anticipation, the air thick with the lingering tension of the battles fought. Later, under the soft, flickering glow of lanterns that cast long shadows across the quiet evening, the aftermath of the tournament took shape. Aikido was approached by a tournament official, who gently admonished him for meddling in the match, reminding him that such interference was grounds for outright disqualification. Yet, in a surprising turn, the official made an exception, clarifying that Musashi's own misconduct earlier in the fight had essentially voided the outcome. As Aikido gazed down at the unconscious Musashi, a flicker of anger burned within him, an emotion he quietly admitted was driven by his own frustration. Even in unconsciousness, Musashi seemed haunted by his failure, muttering under his breath about his inability to avenge a loved one. When questioned about his impulsive actions, why he risked disqualification, Aikido responded that it was purely instinctual, motivated secretly by the swordsman's tragic quest for vengeance. Deep inside, Aikido reflected on how Musashi's relentless pursuit of retribution had ultimately led to his downfall, highlighting the tragic paradox of a warrior's desperate desire to right his past wrongs. As the unconscious swordsman lay there, tears staining his face, not for the loss, but for the unfulfilled promise of revenge, Aikido watched silently. The sight of this broken man moved him profoundly, stirring a vow within to shoulder the heavy burden of his own pursuit of justice. Surrounded by the ghosts of regret and past failures, Aikido hardened his resolve, determined to root out and eliminate every trace of evil that crossed his path, come what may. The scene then shifted to a quiet, lantern-lit building standing in stark contrast to the chaos and spectacle of the arena. Elsewhere in the city, a young woman with goggles suddenly jolted awake at her desk, realizing she had unintentionally slept through the entire day. She looked up at the night sky, her thoughts drifting inevitably to Aikido and the looming confrontation with Shaolin. Her mind wandered to her master, revealing that she had completed an improved version of a magical device intended for him. A shadow of doubt flickered across her face. She questioned whether her actions, driven by her desire to help, were morally and ethically right. Meanwhile, in another segment of the city, a voice echoed, calling out for the champion, Shaolin. The champion himself informed his student, Kaku, that it was nearly time for his semi-final match. Shaolin inquired about Kaku's upcoming opponent, a magic user known as Ku. Despite Kaku's confident words, claiming faith in their school's techniques and training, Shaolin casually dismissed the fight as a foregone conclusion. With a sinister smile, Shaolin questioned Kaku's own ambitions, teasing him about daring to challenge for the prestigious Grandmaster title. His eyes gleamed with a dark anticipation as he mused aloud about the privileges that came with being at the very top of the competitive hierarchy. Kaku, eager yet somewhat uncertain, finally asked his master what he truly desired, whether he would ever be able to step out of Shaolin's shadow. The student confessed that his only wish was for Shaolin to remain the strongest, to keep his dominance unchallenged. As preparations for the semi-final stage got underway, the announcer revealed a new, more intimidating arena for the upcoming battles. A water-based ring designed specifically for brutal, life-and-death combat that would test every fighter's endurance. Because another semi-finalist had withdrawn unexpectedly, the upcoming match was declared the final fight of the day. An official escorted Kaku to the arena, leaving him with his thoughts fixed on his relentless pursuit of strength and mastery. Kaku couldn't help but reflect on his master's overwhelming power, which seemed almost to mock his own tireless efforts at training. As he stepped into the arena, he accepted his role, casting himself as part of Shaolin's shadow, feeling a certain sense of satisfaction as long as his master remained supreme. Both Kaku and his opponent, Ku, stood on opposite ends of the water stage, their minds focused, ready for the fierce semi-final confrontation. The announcer explained the new, more brutal rules. Ring-outs were now permitted, and the fight would continue until one combatant could no longer stand or continue fighting. With their eyes locked on each other, a shared determination filled the air with tense anticipation. At a sharp signal, the match was officially underway. Kaku immediately engaged his opponent, expertly blocking Kuju's initial assault with practiced precision. The two fighters, equally determined, remained locked in a fierce stalemate, each testing the other's strength and resolve with a series of quick, calculated moves. Yet, soon Kaku's confidence wavered as he realized Kuju's technique was far more unusual and unpredictable than he had initially suspected. In a flash of movement, Ku unleashed a surprising counterattack, catching Kaku off guard by swiftly striking with his hand. Seizing Kaku's arm with surprising strength for his slender frame, Ku twisted it, using a grip that defied expectations and leveraged Kaku's own momentum to redirect his opponent's attack. With barely a moment to react, Ku sent Kaku sprawling across the water-covered stage with startling force. The younger warrior skidded, nearly losing his footing, but managed to dig his fingers into the slick platform to steady himself. Ku then leapt high into the air, soaring above the stone pillars that marked the arena's boundaries, aiming to press his advantage. Their eyes met across the battlefield, both fighters calculating and strategizing their next moves with deadly precision. Instead of bracing for impact, Kaku launched himself upward in an aerial maneuver, twisting his body mid-air to deliver a powerful counterattack from above. His face was set with fierce determination as he prepared to unleash a devastating technique. His executing kick connected powerfully, sending Kuju crashing down toward the water below. Yet, Ku landed gracefully, immediately deflecting Kaku's furious follow-up assault with ease. Frustrated by his opponent's incredible speed and adaptability, Ku quickly realized that he was now on the defensive. The two combatants blurred together in a whirlwind of motion, an unstoppable flurry of strikes and blocks, whipping the water into a tumultuous spray. Kaku taunted Ku to fight back, unaware that Ku knew his own guard was about to weaken. The audience, including the stadium announcer, watched breathlessly, captivated by the breathtaking speed and intensity of the battle unfolding before their eyes. From above, Shaolin observed the fight, noting how Kaku embodied their school's fighting style. Yet Ku's technique seemed strangely familiar, almost as if it carried a secret history. Kaku accused his opponent of mocking the art of their master, vowing to destroy Ku in retaliation for his apparent disrespect. Ku, in turn, coolly turned the accusation around, questioning whether Kaku truly considered himself the second-best disciple of the Shaolin school. He then posed a sharply piercing question, asking why a warrior with Kaku's talent was content to serve solely as a tool for someone else's ambitions, rather than forging his own path. The challenge left Kaku momentarily stunned, deep in thought, contemplating the true nature of strength, loyalty, and his own aspirations. Blinded by rage, Kaku sharply dismisses the insult hurled at him, boldly proclaiming that the Shaolin school is the most formidable martial tradition in the entire world. His voice rings with absolute confidence, leaving no room for doubt, as he unleashes a formidable aura that underscores his unwavering devotion to his art. In a display of secret mastery, Kaku activates a concealed Shaolin technique, an advanced breathing method that dramatically boosts his physical strength to explosive levels. With a thunderous stomp of his foot, he unleashes a powerful shockwave composed of water and shattered debris that roars toward his opponent, intent on overwhelming him. However, Ku, with effortless grace, evades the blast, reappearing instantly behind the energized Kaku. As Kaku pivots to strike, Ku reacts with remarkable speed, launching a swift counterattack that aims at Kaku's arm, concealed under a hidden device designed for just such purposes. A cry of shock escapes Kaku as sharp, metallic objects puncture his flesh, causing him to stagger in surprise. Recognizing that he's fallen into a trap, the spectators watch in awe as the stage itself seems to tremble under the sheer force of their fierce confrontation. Kaku scoffs at the trick, asserting that such a cheap imitation of his master's power is nothing more than a fleeting illusion and will never be enough to break his unshakable defense. Undeterred by superficial wounds, his resolve hardens like stone, and he retaliates with a devastating, world-shaking kick, declaring once again that the Shaolin style is the strongest martial tradition known to mankind. The commentators are utterly stunned by Kaku's brutal offensive display, convinced that the outcome of the match is already decided in his favor. Yet, even as Ku falls back, he taunts Kaku with calm disdain, subtly implying that his opponent's limited understanding of true strength is flawed. He suggests Kaku needs to break free from his master's shadow and experience the world beyond the martial arts he's been confined to. Enraged by this insult, Kaku charges forward with renewed fury, determined to silence his opponent forever. Suddenly, however, his attack stalls, frozen by a sudden, jarring realization that stops him dead in his tracks. Ku stands serenely apart, revealing a concealed wire trap that had been set up in advance, an intricate ploy to expose Kaku's lack of awareness and complacency. In an instant, Ku strikes with a brutal armored punch, hitting Kaku squarely in the jaw with tremendous force. The impact sends Kaku flying across the arena, and his agonized cry echoes throughout the stadium walls. His world spins uncontrollably as he is flung backward, completely bewildered by the swift, decisive reversal of fortune. The announcers frantically analyze Kuju's clever tactic, explaining that he employed a hidden rope mechanism to launch a surprise attack from a blind spot that Kaku never anticipated. Struggling to regain his balance, Kaku falls to his knees, his equilibrium shattered, as the devastating truth becomes clear. Every move Kuju made was carefully calculated, a perfect setup. Kuju intensifies his psychological assault, questioning how damaging a single defeat could be to the cultural prestige of the Shaolin school, implying that the reputation of the entire tradition is at stake. He laments that Kaku's extensive training is being wasted on ineffective pursuits, suggesting that he should leave behind the shadows of his master to discover a broader understanding of strength. With sharp words, Kuju delivers a final, cutting blow, stating that Kaku can never truly become the strongest within the Shaolin tradition, and in doing so, triggers a flood of memories across Kaku's mind. Glimpses from his past flash before him, revealing the admiration and respect he once commanded among his peers at the temple. Yet those memories are painfully tainted by the moment he accepted his fate, destined to forever walk in the shadow of the legendary Shaolin master. The stark realization fills him with a renewed resolve, and he rises from the ground with a fierce, burning purpose, declaring that he must be the one to reveal to the world the real path of the Shaolin style. He roars with a final, desperate cry of defiance, vowing he will not fall victim to Kuju's victory. Kuju's armored fist crashes into Kaku's chest, the force of the blow resounding with finality and certainty. With a condescending smirk, Kuju acknowledges that his opponent's fighting spirit, though admirable, was ultimately inadequate, yet not entirely worthless. The announcer declares Kuju as the victor, setting the stage for an ultimate showdown against a new contender. The upcoming match is announced. The enigmatic Kuju will face none other than the master of the Shaolin school himself. No one in the spectator stands could have foreseen such a stunning and unexpected turn of events, as the dark horse challenger now stands poised against the tournament's favorite. Later, a defeated Kaku, battered and weary, stumbles through a dark corridor, burdened by the weight of his failure. The mocking words Kuju uttered about living in his master's shadow echo endlessly in his mind, haunting every thought. Sensing his complete defeat, Kaku finally approaches a figure waiting silently at the end of the hall, his heart heavy. He looks up suddenly, eyes widening in shock, to find his own master Shaolin, staring back with an expression cold and utterly unimpressed. Humiliated, Kaku bows his head in shame, murmuring an apology for his weakness and inability to succeed. Xiaolon dismisses the apology with a condescending smile, offering to tend to his pupil's wounds in a manner that feels more like mockery than care. Confused by his master's peculiar gesture, Kaku hesitates, wondering about the true purpose behind Xiaolon's strange offer to test a new healing technique on him. Without warning, Xiaolon strikes with sudden force, unleashing a dark, corrosive energy that engulfs Kaku's body, causing him to scream in agony as the strange power ravenously consumes him. Xiaolon calmly contemplates the unfolding chaos, uncertain whether he miscalculated his move. In his final moments, Kaku summons enough strength to accuse his master of disgracing the very style he vowed to uphold and protect. Coldly, Xiaolon informs his fallen pupil that his usefulness has ended, and he orders him to perish. Kaku's body dissolves into nothingness, leaving his master alone on the stone steps, a trace of no remorse on his face. He steps over the remains of his defeated student with a satisfied grin, confessing that Kuju is the first opponent in many years to truly excite his fighting spirit. His delight quickly turns into a wild, unhinged laugh, revealing a true penchant for chaos and battle hunger. As dawn's first light illuminates the arena, it stands ready for the decisive, final confrontation. News of the extraordinary match, Kuju versus Xiaolon's master, spreads rapidly across the continent, capturing everyone's attention. The official fight poster confirms the shocking pairing, the mysterious new challenger against the reigning champion, in a clash that none could have anticipated. Meanwhile, in a distant part of the world, a concerned man named Aikido observes as his companion, Iris, prepares to leave on a somber mission. A blonde woman intercepts Iris, scolding her for taking 3 days away and demanding she hurry. Iris, with a calm but regretful expression, explains she has been retrieving Kuju's specialized equipment to prepare for the upcoming battle. With a heavy heart, she confesses that her personal quest for revenge no longer holds the same importance. As she prepares to say her final farewell, Iris pleads with Aikido not to follow the destructive path she's chosen. Despite Aikido's deep understanding of the dangers involved, she admits she cannot be stopped and shares her dream of a different life, one filled with peace and quiet. She envisions running a small workshop somewhere remote, crafting prosthetics while Aikido, in turn, uses his skills to help others and heal wounds. It is a future that now hangs in the balance. Aikido insists that it is already too late, that the course she has set upon cannot be altered. Understanding his concern, Iris gently requests a final promise before the confrontation begins. Turning toward Ku, who has now appeared at his side, she persuades him to vow he will return from the impending battle alive. Aikido clutches his fist tightly as memories flood his mind, reminding him of a sacred promise he made long ago to her, that he would never abandon her to face her hardships alone. In a flashback, he vividly remembers vowing never to leave her to struggle on her own, no matter how difficult life might become. Recognizing the renewed strength within Aikido, Ku nods in acknowledgement, quietly appreciating the power he has unlocked in his ally before turning solemnly to face his own fate, heading toward the decisive final fight.